Much of the symbols and metaphors in the movie are clearly meant to be a puzzle piece that will hopefully pay off later on.
I'm kind of giddy when I talk about it sometimes because I'm so amazed that the movie ever got made in the first place, and the fact that people watch it closely enough to actually find some meaning in it is just great. It's not like things just sort of unfolded as I'm writing scene to scene. It was all mapped out very carefully before I even wrote page one.
Little things take on big meaning, and when you're dealing with like essentially what is pieces of a puzzle that at the beginning of the story are all separated, and then by the end of it you want them all to be together. But at the same time, you want to maintain a little level of mystery in the movie too, right? You don't want everything at the end to be so nicely tied up with a neat little bow that it's just like, okay, good, there you go.
Got plans for Mother's Day?
I'm taking my little boy to the amusement park. It's supposed to be my day, yet he gets all the fun. That's okay. When he's older, I'll let him make it up to me.
A little guilt goes a long way.
A lot of the dialogue in the movie has subtextual meaning. Trevor says things without realizing the full extent of what he's saying.
Trevor, can I ask you something?
Should my lawyer be present?
Can I ask you a question? And he says, should my lawyer be present? Kind of a subconscious Freudian kind of response to, do I need a lawyer? We're going to talk about the accident I was involved in.
I'll tell you one thing. Whatever he did, he sure ain't copping to it.
Would you?
Dialogue such as, wouldn't you, that wouldn't have subconscious meaning for Trevor.
Fucking hit-and-run drivers, man. They ought to be hanged.
Stevie says, damn hit-and-run drivers, they should be hanged. And in Trevor's mind, it kind of has a subconscious meaning.
What if I turn into a werewolf or something?
He knows that he's headed to some conclusion in which he's going to find something monstrous about himself. The hangman was really a plot device more than anything else.
Scott kind of used those Post-it notes as a symbol of Trevor piecing together the clues, as it were, that in the end come together and make sense for him.
I guess it's symbolic in the sense that the more Trevor learns about himself, the tighter the noose gets. He's either hanging himself by coming to this bitter truth, or more accurately, he hung himself by reacting the way he did to this terrible tragedy. To really say this is who this character was prior to this terrible event, after which he became a different person. One of the aspects of OCD is that people do these irrational, compulsive acts as a means of trying to control their life.
I know who you are.
Trevor's at a point in his life where he's lost complete control, has no understanding of what's happening to him, and the more anxious he becomes, the more his life falls apart. His response is to, I gotta go wash my hands.
It wasn't enough just for it to be soap, it had to be bleach, you know? We created a bottle of bleach, just like generic, it just says bleach on it, you know what I mean? It doesn't say like Clorox bleach, it just says bleach. It's so clearly like metaphorical for him trying to wipe away the blood on his hands, the symbolic blood on his hands.
The image of clocks and 1:30 is a recurring visual in the story. It's one of those mysteries, things that we're meant to wonder, what is the significance of 1:30? And of course, when the big epiphany happens, we learn that Trevor was involved in this hit-and-run accident that occurred at 1:30.
In the course of however long it is since he hit the boy and he finally fesses up at the end, is caught in that moment. I mean, he hasn't yet escaped that moment. The whole movie is premised on the idea that he has pushed down his conscious memory of that incident.
Now, it's a cheat because the accident happened at 1:30 in the afternoon, but in the movie, it's always 1:30 in the morning, because that's where most of the movie takes place at night.
Trevor,
Yeah,
can I ask you a question?
sure.
Why do you go out of your way to come here every night?
I chose the airport cafe for two reasons. One, on a very subconscious level, Trevor is aware of this crime he was involved in. To me, the airport represents a chance for flight, for escape.
There's a scene where he goes to the airport and literally tries to get a plane ticket out, like literally get out of Dodge, you know? And that scene got cut, but so the idea for me that was always at the airport was like the way station of his attempt to sort of flee. It's almost like his mind, if you imagine, was contemplating that, but he never got that far.
Why not go to a Denny's? I also set the coffee shop in an airport to sort of add to this surreal aspect of the fantasy life.
We needed some iconic image to identify the site of the accident, the intersection, if you will, where he hit this boy. Because it seemed to me important that people remember that place. We found an intersection in Barcelona that had this weird water tower, and it was just something very kind of creepy about it. It was just this big, iconic, almost mushroom-shaped thing. I felt that it was something that we could connect it to that particular intersection. So there's a moment when Trevor is leaving the factory or the machine shop, and he comes to that intersection, and he stops, and he doesn't know why, but he looks up and he sees that tower, and he doesn't know why, and we don't know why, but it's very foreboding and there's something ominous about it. Of course, we realize later that he's at the very intersection where he hit the boy months or a year before or whatever.
Oh my God.
The Route 666 ride was as literal a manifestation of Trevor's twisted psyche as you could get.
It's really like us going into the recesses of Trevor's guilty conscience. Route 666, I mean, why that? I mean, that's a minor thing, but in the story at the end, when we see him driving in the car, there's a little medallion hanging from the rearview mirror. And that little icon, just burned itself into his brain, and that somehow became a part of his hallucination.
The Route 666 ride itself is just a tour de force of art direction, in my opinion, because everything in there is a clue for something.
Take a right, Nicholas. Take a right. A right.
I think it's sort of funny where Trevor's like, take the right, take the right, take the right.
The fork in the road was an externalization of those elements from the subconscious ride. Which road will he take? Will he go left or will he go right?
In some ways, the whole movie is about him ultimately having to make the choice whether to turn himself in, as he does, or to continue to flee his guilt.
The depiction of the epileptic seizures is a sort of an homage to Dostoevsky's The Idiot. The character in that story is someone who suffers from epilepsy. To have this young boy be afflicted with this, it's just a terrible thing, but somehow adds to the horror of what Trevor was responsible for.
I need some help here!
Trevor, rushes out of the ride and tries to help the boy, and in some ways, it's maybe a response to the fact that when he really did hurt the boy, that he just ran away.
It's just another case of Trevor getting closer to the truth, that he did something so horrible, he destroyed this young person's life. Trevor fabricates this hit-and-run accident that he then goes to the police with and says, I was hit by this car.
Without even realizing it, he's now already starting to pay the price. He's going to suffer the way he made this boy suffer by killing him. So that's paying his penance in a way.
There are a lot of things that I was aware of when I wrote it. In the spirit of the double, or the doppelganger, two people are hit by automobiles. There's also a double accident.
Hey, what'd you do?
It's the loss of Miller's arm that leads Trevor to the truth about a different accident. So it's sort of one accident rips the scab off of another.
What we know is this. Miller's arm was in the cutting zone of the mill while it was off. The mill suddenly activates, catching Miller's sleeve, resulting in this.
There's a shop inquiry. Everybody looks at him differently. They think he's on drugs. They think he's crazy. They start prying into his life.
You lost him, man.
As a result of that, he starts to become paranoid to the extent that he thinks there's a plot against him.
Trevor, I'm looking at a picture of you, standing next to some fat guy with glasses holding a fish.
The function of the fish in the movie initially was just strictly a plot device. It was a means of establishing a photograph of Ivan with this guy Reynolds holding a fish. It's a photograph that Trevor finds and leads him to believe that the guys at work are conspiring against him to get him kicked out of the workplace. It also sets up the dead fish, which is a red herring that's in his freezer. Beyond that, there's an explosion of fish references throughout the movie. The bumper sticker, "I'd rather be fishing," the mounted fish that we see in the walls of certain locations.
I'm Ivan. Trevor.
Ivan is a projection of Trevor's guilt and represents the darker side of Trevor's nature. The cowboy boots, the sort of swagger that character has, it just sort of establishes this guy as kind of a menacing character who's sure of himself and cocky.
Scott just had this idea of this guy, Ivan, having this sort of like crab claw, because it sort of looks like a claw, like a crab's claw.
It was meant to just create a character who's just really disgusting kind of a character.
Ivan's hand is resonant with Miller's lost fingers, which is, again, pinging Trevor's guilty conscience because he's somewhat responsible for the accident that occurred at the machine shop.
The purpose of the scene in which Ivan brings the boy to Trevor's apartment, Trevor's at the point where he's going to have this shattering revelation about the tragic incident that he repressed, a revelation about who Ivan really is. So that scene needs to occur because it's really this repressed subconscious memory that's coming to a head. And so the boy, I felt, needed to be there along with Ivan. The moment in the bathroom when Trevor kills Ivan, that's really the thing that leads to the revelation about Ivan's true identity. When he attempts to kill this character, he does so thinking that Ivan's a mortal person. And it isn't until moments later that he realizes who Ivan really is. And for me, it was Trevor's way of finally killing off his adversary, only to learn that he didn't kill the adversary is himself, and it's never going to go away until he comes to terms with what he did.
Just want to sleep.